Okay, so inactivities. 1. Study figure 1, 2 and 3. So I'll look at those briefly with you in a moment, alright? These are quite easy ones here, alright, but it gets a little bit trickier once we get down to part 2. So, what evidence is there on the map and in the photographs to suggest that the lower site of Robin Hood's Bay is older than the higher site? Okay, so again, what we can do there, there's two pieces to this answer. So, what evidence is there that the buildings and housing is older? And also about the coastline. So how can we tell that the coastline is older or been more exposed for longer at one place rather than the other? I'll go through that question with you when we're looking at the diagrams. B. Why do you think the original site of the town was on the seafront? So again, why do you think? So what do you think is the reasons, or what might be one or two reasons why a village might be located so close to the sea originally? C. I want 3 different features. Describe the coastal features in Robin Hood's Bay. So again, coastal features, they can be all sorts, from erosional features to depositional. So try and identify 3 different features, coastal natural features, not man-made stuff, all right? D, what coastal defenses existed prior to the most recent works that took place in 2000-2001? So what we'll have to do there is you'll have to look at the 2 photos. One is from before and one is from after, and try and compare what was already there. Okay. For the next bit, study figures 2 and 3, so just the photos. Look closely at the coastal defences that have been constructed, alright, and notice that there have been changes to the seafront and also to the sloping behind. Now we're just going to do here B and C, so 2, B and C. I think in my lesson forecast I said D as well, but don't do D. Okay, so B, these 2 you can pretty much answer without even looking at the photos. This is just to try and review your knowledge of how we can protect the coast. Alright. Why do you think the engineers spent money improving the stability and drainage of the slope behind the new sea defence? So why do you think they're trying to drain the land? Think back to what we talked about in the first video about think back what we talked about just in the first video, about land becoming saturated. What happens when rocks and soil fill up with water? So why do you think part of the defences was improving stability and drainage on the slopes? C, why has vegetation been encouraged to develop on the slope as well? So why do you think, what possible advantages would planting lots of vegetation bring? Okay, so again, in terms of coastal defence, why has vegetation been encouraged? So what advantages, like I said, what advantages would it bring to trying to reduce the erosion? Think about what plants can do in terms of water and so on. Okay, so I'll quickly look at some of the images. This shouldn't be overly difficult, alright, but again, you do have to do a little bit of thinking. Okay, so on page 41 you've got your map of Robin Hood's Bay. Alright, we got the old town kind of down here, and then the newer settlement up here. For the question about lands or the coastal features, what coastal features exist, alright, if you look at all of this stuff along here, okay, you should be able to come up with 3 different features. And again, the photos probably help a little bit better, but if you look at your symbols for what this is and so on, you should be able to identify some coastal features. Okay, so on page 42, okay, sorry, this keeps getting a little bit blurry, but what we're looking at is the original old settlement down here, and this is the new one. Alright, so you're asked to contrast them a little bit, okay? So you'll have to look closely, but look at the layout of the settlements and stuff like that. Alright, also what you could argue is the kind of access, try and look at the access access routes to both, if you look back at the map as well. So think about where this is built, the layout and so on, so we can contrast them. Alright, you can also see some more coastal features here, like we should all know what this is along here. Alright, so it shows a bit more dramatic, the features. Our last figure then is the last photo on the next page. Let me just do that. Okay, again you got the old town down here, right by the sea, and this is the newer settlement back up here. So what coastal defences were already in place? Alright, sorry, this is this is the newer coastal defence up here. This is what they've done. What about these things down here? So go back to our coastal defences and try and have a look at that and figure out what defences were already in place. Alright, before, this is what they did. This is the new defences. If you look at this here, it's this area in here on this photo. Okay, so you can see how it's changed. We're going to go on to our next and last case study very, very quickly. Okay, so coastal deposition on page 45. So again, a couple of questions with this, and they can all go on your folder sheet, all in full sentences. I want you to send me all of them so I can see, but in particular I'll be marking the activities you do from this case study. Okay, so just in here, what is a spit? Okay, we're looking at coastal deposition now. So a spit is a long, narrow deposit of sand and shingle. We said shingle are like small collection, like small little rocks and stuff, extending out from the shore into the sea. Okay, it results from the transportation of sediment. So it results from longshore drift and then deposition. It should really say deposition in here, considering they're talking about deposition. Now, just a little bit more about spits. As a spit gradually extends out into the sea, it becomes vulnerable to wave attack, which often causes the tip of the spit to curve back towards the shore. Such a feature is called a recurved tip or a lateral. Now, we haven't used that word lateral before, but there you have it now. We'll see there's a really good photo on the next page, page 46, to look at that. Deposition of mud and silt often takes place in the calmer protected waters behind a spit, all right? And the salt marsh will eventually develop. Eventually, this land may be drained and used for farming. Okay, not just farming, we construct all sorts of stuff on that, because what we can do is, once the water gets shallower and shallower, we can backfill it in with material, drain the land fully so it's stable to build on. Spits are also vulnerable to storm damage, and they are also recognized as being important habitats for wildlife. So the photo at the bottom of the page actually shows kind of the end of a salt marsh or a swamp behind a spit, and it becomes a very important habitat because it's like a protective area for sea life, bird life, and small animals as well. Alright? So, let's just make a little start. So, question 1, A, B, C, and D. Alright? It says study figure 1. Alright, and figure 1 is directly below these questions, and this is very, very simple. What is the vegetation found at A? Okay, actually, I made one mistake. What I would like to do is, actually, no, we don't. It's okay. Sorry. So, what is vegetation at A? So again, you need to look down. We'll look down at that in a second. Why is this vegetation often found on sand dunes? Think about how it might survive. Now, we looked, I think it was in Bahamas today, but in a previous lesson, we looked at the name given to plants that survive on beaches, okay, and how they do it. So that might be a little answer there. And we looked at a key word in particular. C, why is this type of grass often deliberately planted on sand dunes? So again, you should already know this. Why do we plant certain types of vegetation on sand dunes? What's the point of that? So again, I'm not going to give you too much information because I'm grading this work. And D, why do you think there's standing water in the center right of the photograph? So again, there's a couple of things here. Think about where we are. So let me just move down to the photograph. Okay, here we have it. Now, A is right here. The answer is given to you in the photo. So have a little look around the photo at the other labels. The ocean is out here. Okay, the land comes around and then our spit comes off up here and you can't see the end of it. So in behind the spit, okay, between the spit and the land, the water starts to become shallow. So again, think about why there is water in here. Why isn't it the ocean? Why is it just like a little kind of shallow pool of water? What's going on? Okay, so think about the proximity to the coast. Alright, and think about what happens, as we said just in the text higher up here. Okay, what happens over time to the water in behind the spit. I'm just going to move on to the next page and finish off with the rest of our questions, okay?